Welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, it is well after the trade deadline now, and we are in the middle of March. The playoff race is starting to heat up for some teams more than others. Uh, yeah, where do we want to start with this one? Because we don't really have a ton of big news, but like it does feel like there's a lot going on around the league.
Well, you did say it's the middle of March, which means as of the day of recording, it is your birthday today. You're
is
officially another year older, along with your wife, actually, too. It is her birthday as well. You guys share the same day, so happy birthday to you both to start it out here.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I it's weird. I woke up this morning and I've for so many years I've been used to being low elite, but I checked and I was exact bottom 6 for AHL forward this morning. So that's pretty rough, but when you lock in at 27,
mark. You're in your prime now.
Yep, we know exactly what kind of player I am, and it's he retires with 0 games played.
It's a St. Louis Blues glazer is your role.
Jordan Binnington, I believe he's only lost 1 game since the Four Nations.
He's been good since the Four Nations. He's
on a revenge tour.
He's been very good. And if St. Louis does make the playoffs, it'll mostly be because of him.
Yeah.
He has been absolutely on fire. I guess we'll just kind of go through and start rattling off some of the latest news we got. Last night, I don't know if you're watching the game. I was. It happened very quickly. Seattle Kraken defenseman Brandon Montour made NHL history when he scored the fastest goal to begin an overtime, doing so in only 4 seconds. It was pretty incredible to watch that against Montreal.
I could see it being tied at certain points. I don't know if you get a 3-second goal in overtime. Like that happened so fast.
It's never even happened before. This was the fastest goal to start an overtime, but it also ties the fastest goal to begin any period at 4 seconds. 3 seconds has never been done before.
Yeah, and I don't think you really can unless like a team starts with like an empty net or something. Like it was such a nice set play by the Kraken, and the Canadians were not ready for it. I believe Lane Hudson, who we'll talk about a bit later, was actually out there lined up against Montour. And obviously you're trying to win the puck back. And for the Kraken, they were more than happy to do it because the centerman actually helps push it through. And Montour just goes around, grabs it, walks in. He doesn't even get close to the net. He shoots from like the top of the circle.
Yeah, he was going for that record. Yeah, it was one of those weird ones where, normally, traditionally, at least the setup for 3-on-3 overtime is you've got your centerman, you've got your winger, and then you've got the defenseman back. But both teams had the defenseman right up there where the other winger would normally be. It was 3-on-3, but at first glance, it's just kind of looks like 3 forwards lining up for the faceoff. Yeah. And yeah, you got to imagine it was a set play by Seattle, the way that they executed that, like literally perfect from the drop of the puck to it in the net, and you've won in 4 seconds.
Yeah, and that capped off a great night for Montour as well, because that put him at 4 points on the night, 2 goals, 2 assists. Like, dude was an absolute monster.
He's been playing very good as of lately. Got off to a little bit of a slow start in Seattle, as a lot of them did, but he's really starting to find his stride with them now.
Just looking up his season stats to see how he's comparing there. In one less game, he's played 1 less game for the Kraken than he did for the Panthers last year, and he is 3 points shy of how many points he had. However, he has 15 goals already. He only had 8 last year.
Yeah,
I'm actually looking at penalty minutes. He's already 3 points ahead of last year, and with 7 more goals. So he's doing pretty damn good in Seattle.
He's doing pretty good. We don't got it in here, but another defenseman actually that I came across this morning that is looking to put his name in the record books is none other than Cody Ceci. who is currently on track. He does have to play every game to finish out the season here with Dallas. But if he plays every single game in the regular season, he would become the 9th player in NHL history to play 85 games in a season. And for those who are wondering, regular season, normally 82 games. Yes, but from when he was traded from San Jose to Dallas, San Jose played 3 more games. So taking that into account, if he does, he would play a total of 85 regular season games, which he'd be the only 9th player in history to do so.
Is that tied for the record? Do you know if is 85 the absolute most?
86 is the most.
I would love to
Jimmy
see
Carson
a guy
played 86.
Jimmy Carson, what a unit. I would love to see a guy in the twilight of his career sign for like league minimum and like sign with a team that's front loaded for their schedule and like just go for the record. Just try and get try and break 90. Like just be like, all right, I'm gonna play my heart out for you. And you can play me on the 4th line if you want. And even if I'm a better player than that, that's fine. And then trade me like, whatever day, like November 3rd. And then send me to this team because they've got a crazy November, December. And then you get them to try and trade to another like play for like 4 different teams and like try to maximize your games.
Just try
as many back-to-backs as you can.
Possible.
It would be so goofy and so funny to watch. And like all of a sudden, like there's all these guys tied at 85 games, one guy at 86, and then he's got like 94.
Yeah, just doesn't even care about winning a cup, just wants to set that record. That's the only mission that they're on.
Yeah. I just think that would be absolutely hilarious. Although if you went for it for the year, if you like got injured in like February or March, that would be heartbreaking.
Yeah. That would be your whole year would just be for nothing. You'd have to do it all again next year.
Gotta go for the most playoff games.
I guess other defenseman news. We got some more stuff surrounding defensemen. The New Jersey Devils. We were pretty harsh on them after the trade deadline for the Brian Dumoulin move. We didn't think it made much sense, but now we're starting to see where they're coming from. We do now know for sure that Jonas Siegenthaler has been ruled out for the remainder of the regular season. They haven't confirmed whether or not he's going to be back for the playoffs. It sounds like he will be, but they haven't confirmed that. But it is sounding like Dougie Hamilton he is out the rest of the regular season, and he is not expected to be back for the start of the playoffs. So that's just more massive injuries to New Jersey. That seems to be the thing that just cripples them every year, is just nonstop injuries.
Yeah, they've had some really rough injury luck for a couple of years now, and especially with Jack Hughes, right? Like it's so tough without those top guys because it seemed like a bit of a crazy prediction before, me saying the Devils are not only going to fall out of the 3rd Metro spot, but I thought they were going to fall all the way out of the playoffs without Jack Hughes and without Dougie Hamilton. It's pretty tough losing your best defenseman and your best forward. Not a lot of teams can hold on to a spot losing those guys.
Yeah, it's a tough position for them. I feel for them. I feel for their fans again. Going into last season, so much hype around them, so much hope, and more than anything, injuries again, bad goaltending. Let's not forget the bad goaltending.
Yeah,
keeps them out of the playoffs.
Remedied. That's definitely been fixed.
Yeah, and then coming into this year, you finally got a goalie, you got a new head coach, everybody's healthy, and now you're in a spot again where you're, in a year that you were supposed to be, comfortably in a playoff spot coming down the stretch and secure. You're going to be fighting like hell every game to hold on to that playoff spot that you're in.
Yeah, and for a team that we were so recently talking about having a logjam of defensemen, like now their top defensive pair as it stands right now is Luke Hughes and Brett Pesce. That's not great for a top pair.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, now their defensive core is looking like Luke Hughes and Pesci, Brian Dumoulin and Jonathan Kovacevic, and Brendan Dillon and Simone Nemec. So they
like, it's
still
not a
got the
bad
depth.
defensive core. Like, depth wise, it's good, but yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be it's tough sledding for them down the rest of the regular season, and we just gotta kind of wait and see what happens if they hold on to that wild cards. Or, well, I guess they're still third in the Metro, but Columbus is slowly gaining some ground on them. So we'll see if they can hold on to that third Metro spot, and if they can, can they hold on to a wild card spot at the very least?
Yeah, and you know what? This team still has a lot of talent. I wouldn't be shocked if they still made the playoffs, even if they held onto their spot here.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be shocked one bit.
Yeah, just losing those top guys is
for them than what it would have been normally.
Yeah. Other than that, what else do we got here? This one was making a lot of news last night. Connor Zary is going to have a hearing for his hit on Elias Pettersson, the defenseman Elias Pettersson.
And I was just getting so rattled listening to this game because I totally forgot that they had Elias Pettersson on defense. So when the announcers are talking and they're like, "Oh, Canucks defenseman Elias Pettersson is out," I'm like, "Okay, it's Marcus Pettersson. Like, come on, like it's not that hard." And then they were talking about it again. I'm like, "All right, time you can correct yourself. Time to fix it." Marcus Pettersson, Elias Pettersson. I was like, guys, get it together here. And then eventually I was like, oh shit, yeah, they actually do have an Elias Pettersson on defense. So they were actually right the whole time. I just totally forgot that this team is just obsessed with collecting Petterssons.
Yeah, they're collecting them like Thanos collects Infinity Stones. Like, it's honestly so funny that they have 3 Petterssons. 2 of them have the same first name as well. But yeah, who was hit earlier? I think it was Kadri was hit right before this one, and the Zary hit was kind of retaliatory.
Yeah, it wasn't a good play.
Yeah, but yeah, the hit on Kadri was a big open ice hit, but it was clean. And Zary goes over and just absolutely brains Pettersson, and that was a rough look because I don't even think Pettersson had the puck or had it recently. I think he just kind of went over and just kind of elbowed him in the head, man. Like, that's
kind of gooned him.
And you know what? We know the league doesn't. One of the last teams they're going to give the benefit of the doubt to is the Calgary Flames. They're not currently cup contenders. They're not in a huge market Canadian team. Like, they just don't have a reason to care about Calgary much. Connor Zary, I don't think, is a guy who gets the benefit of the doubt very much. I wouldn't be surprised if they make an example of this. We've seen them hand out some much fatter suspensions than we've seen in recent years already this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to really send a message with this one.
But like, what do you mean? Like, what is your prediction then if they're trying to send a message?
I definitely think the minimum he's going to get, I think the absolute minimum is probably 3 games. I think it's more than likely he gets at least 5. I could see them going all the way to like 8, 9, 10. Honestly.
No. Not for a first-time offender. Because then anybody that does something like this, you have to slap them with that.
But that might be what they want going forward. Because like the puck was nowhere near this, and it was just a gutless play. He just went over and absolutely beamed him in the head. Like, there's not a lot of defending it. He is a first-time offender, which is why I think it'll probably end up around the 5-6 mark. But
I think it's probably going to be that around that like 3. It's like we've just seen that kind of seems to be the trend that they're doing is a deliberate headshot. They've kind of just been throwing out that 3. So to me, it doesn't really matter what they do. I think he definitely does deserve a suspension for it. Like, there's got to be some accountability.
Yeah, I think it should probably be at least.
I imagine it'll be. I imagine it'll be 3. Ones. Yeah, going off what they did. Like, there's been guys that have gotten 3 for much less. And in certain cases this year, we've seen guys get 3 games for a hit that was shoulder and kind of rode up to the head. So I think it's got to be at least 3 if they want to go more, sure. But
yeah,
I'm interested to see how they handle this one and what the criteria is for it.
Yeah, a lot of those 3-game suspensions that are hits to the head, a lot of them are like cross checks or hits where neither guy is moving too much. This one had a lot of speed on the impact, and that's something that I think they're going to take into account. That's why I'm thinking it'll be around the 5 range. But yeah, especially for a first-time offender, I don't think they need to go much more than 5 or 6. That would send a pretty clear message, but I don't know. Who knows if they want to send that message? George Peros certainly doesn't. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. And of course, these headlines for this hit are doing incredibly well for clicks because everyone's seeing that he's having a hearing for headshot on Elias Pettersson, which it doesn't really matter who you hit. At least it shouldn't for suspension wise, but people read that and they're thinking about the guy making $11 million, not the defenseman.
Yeah, I'm curious. I imagine it'll be at least 3. If they go more, sure. If they don't, sure. But I think you got to at least stick to the precedent that they've been setting all season long. You can't go away from that now.
Yeah,
you got to stay on the path that you've set up for yourself. So that's where I think it'll end up being at least.
Yeah, and it is supposed to happen today, the hearing. So if we're lucky, maybe it'll happen before the end of this episode. But we'll keep an
most
eye on
likely
that.
not. My guess is it'll be later on in the day. Yeah,
probably
it'll be like a 5 p.m. or something.
But beyond that, do we want to talk about the Calder race next?
Yeah, I think that's as good of a place as any to go off to. It's kind of the one award that's got a lot of talk around, and it's got a lot of fan bases at each other's throats for it. So
yeah, and it's one that we even covered a little bit last episode almost, because we were talking a decent bit about Dustin Wolf. But basically at this point, it is a 3-horse race. If Matvei Michkov has an insane March, I could see him sneaking into the conversations. He's been on a bit of a heater. I think he's got 10 points in his last 7 games, but I think he's far enough back that he would, especially to full on win it, he would have to have a really good March.
I would agree, and I think a big thing as well, like you said, he obviously does need to have a very strong end to the like the end of a regular season, but I think also in terms of just like if he's even on the same level as the other guys, I don't even think he finishes top 3, because I think the voters are more inclined to go with a defenseman, and especially a defenseman that plays on a team like the Montreal Canadians. Celebrini, first overall pick, like a young Canadian, they're more likely to go for him. And then Dustin Wolf, a goaltender. Like in terms of looking at it, Michkov is the least likely to get that kind of tiebreaker vote if he was on the same level as the other 3.
Yeah, he's
and no disrespect to Michkov, that's just the way it's been, the way the voters go. Like that's just the way they've been. So
yeah, like he's been great this year still, regardless. 47 points, 20 goals in 64 games. Like he's still doing very well for a rookie season. Honestly, most years he's in the Calder talks. It's just I can't remember the last time we saw this good of a rookie class fighting for the Calder. Like There's a couple years in the past 10 years where like the guy who straight up won the Calder wouldn't even be a finalist this year. There's a couple years like that. So that really speaks to how good these guys have been. But of the top 3, who do we want to talk about first? Do we want to say who we think will be first, second, and third and go from there? Or do you have any specific order you want to do this?
You know what? Your big day. I'll let you pick on where you want to start here.
All right. Let's start with let's start with Dustin Wolf, because he is kind of almost the odd one out of this, just because he's a bit of a wild card because he's a goalie. And it's so much harder to determine what counts, what is good for a goalie. You know, we can compare, Celebrini and Hudson. We can compare their assists, their points, their plus minus, their, stuff like that. But it's so much harder with a goaltender. So
quickly before we go into this, just want to put out there that it is very clearly a 4-horse race here in the Calder. Celebrini is the favorite at minus 190. Lane Hudson is second at plus 225. Dustin Wolf has jumped up to third at plus 850. And then Michkov is plus 1400. And if you're wondering why we're not talking about anyone else, the next closest is a bunch of guys at plus 30,000. So
plus 30,000.
It is very clearly. And for those who aren't big in the betting, it's basically if you throw $1 on Logan Stankoven to win the Calder, and he does $1, you win 300. So they really don't believe that anyone else outside these four have a chance.
Yeah. Just as a comparable for how unlikely it is at this point, I believe the Anaheim Ducks had the same odds, the $300 for every one, to win the Stanley Cup if you put a bet on them at the start of the year. So they're about as likely as the Ducks were to win the Cup at the beginning of the year. Like it just ain't happening at this point. But yeah, those other four, they all have a claim. Michkov definitely less so, but with Wolf, he has been incredible. Probably the best player on the team this year for the Flames. He's got a .915 in 39 games. Where's his wins? They got his wins here: 22, 12, and 5. Like, dude's been solid for him.
He's been
like
very
a .915.
Good.
A .915 for a rookie is crazy.
3 shutouts on the year. 253 goals against.
Like
he's been the Flames' best player. He's again, like I said in the last episode, he's the reason the Flames are not only in a playoff spot but still contending. Like if you didn't have Dustin Wolf, again, you're already for sure not making the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think it not even really hurts his case much, but like he's not playing like elite starter numbers. He's playing kind of like regular starter numbers where it's not quite a tandem, but there's a clear starter. Like he's got comparable starts to a guy like Karel Vejmelka, who has 3 more games played than him. But, he's not up there with the Vasilevskis, the Hellebucks, the Shesterkins. They're all hitting 50 around this point. Wolf's at 39.
I don't really look at that as much anymore because it was to start the year. It was a clear tandem between Wolf and Vladar. But then, basically, I think for the most part, since kind of like the Christmas break, Dustin Wolf has been the starter, and he's been getting the majority of the starts. And not only that, he's playing more of the tougher teams, whereas Vladar's, for the most part, Vladar has had some tough starts, but has kind of come in against the weaker teams,
taking the weaker on the back-to-backs and stuff like that, for sure.
Yeah,
and it's like it's one of those things that it's just another compounding reason of why we see so few Calder wins for so few Calder wins for goalies, so few like Hart wins, stuff like that, because McDavid can go out there and play 82 games. We've never seen a goalie do that, I don't think. Like the most you ever get was like Broder's probably got all the records for the best seasons, and even for him it was like 75. Like so it
definitely does hurt his. Yeah, like he would definitely, probably have a lot more It still has a lot of attention on him around the Calder race, but I think would have a lot more, like you said, if he did have more starts. Like what was he at? 39. So like if he was games. At that even just 45, I think at this point, like he's played 45 and Vladar's played like 19. I think bumps his case up a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, so if he played that, like he would pass Vejmelka, he'd pass Lucas Dostal, he'd be tied with a guy like Joey Decord. He'd be 2 games behind Igor Shesterkin. Like now you're comparable with at least on games played, those top guys. And obviously the Calder isn't about comparing yourself to those top guys. It's not the heart, but it just helps bolster your case when you've got those extra games played. Like you came in and immediately took the reins and you immediately showed that you didn't need to be in a tandem, even though Wolf basically did that like 10 games in. Like he didn't take that starting role, but pretty quickly people could tell if it is a tandem, there's a 1A and a 1B. Like because he has been absolutely great. And one other thing
for Wolf. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to point out because there's so many advanced stats for goalies. There's all the expected, there's like stats expected of that stat, expected of the unblocked stat versus blocked, and then the actual one. Like there's so many. One of the ones I always love looking at that really seems to paint a picture and tell a story for me is their save percentage above expected on unblocked high danger chances. So that's how much better they're doing than the average goalie on breakaways where they actually get a shot, a bad turnover to the slot and the guy just gets a clean look at the net. Like those really rough chances, who's making a lot of those saves? And Dustin Wolf, so if you don't know much about this stat, the number's not going to mean much. He's 0.088 above expected on that. For comparison, Logan Thompson, phenomenal year. He's 0.121. That's not a ton high. He's right there with guys like Shesterkin and Thompson. Like he's saving a lot of these like absolute gifts. He's got a 0.088. Connor Hellebuck, who is getting legitimate Hart Trophy talk, 0.97. He's 0.009 away from Hellebuck's high danger above expected. Like that's one of those stats that really speaks volumes to how good guys have been.
Wolf has been absolutely incredible. We'll just keep banging on the drum, but he's the reason Calgary is in the fight for the playoffs right now.
Yeah.
Where would you rank him? Assuming we both kind of Michkov. Again, still great season for Michkov, but I'm assuming we both still kind of have him at that 4.
He's cemented in 4 until he drops and somebody else improves, or if he gets up to the top 3. I can't see anybody having him not in 4th.
Yeah.
For
Where do you
Dustin
put Wolf for 1, 2, 3?
Are you wanting my prediction, or are you doing what I think is deserved? I guess we should lay that out.
Let's do both. Let's just do both.
Okay. I think, man, he's been real solid. I think he deserves. Oh man,
It's tough. It's tough.
I'm gonna say first.
You think he's first?
Yeah. I think.
Okay, I'm right there with you.
I think he should be first.
What's your prediction at the end of the season? Where does he end up in the final ballots?
It would be impossible to predict what they would do right now since it feels so close. I predict at the end of the season they will put him 3rd.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. For me right now, he's first. Like I think he should get it, but what do I predict and think they're gonna do? I think he ends up third. Yeah,
I think they're gonna have a lot of tough games, and I think his stats might drop just a little bit. You know, he's at 915. I think he might end the season around a 912 kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
And I think there's going to be a lot of voters putting in for Hellebuck to win the Hart. And I think if they're doing that, they're going to go, okay, well, I already voted for a goalie. What am I going to vote for another goalie? And there's going to be a lot of guys who
it sounds crazy to say that, but like
don't help them out.
The way they vote, it is very possible.
Yeah, a lot of people, I always hear that they're like, these guys, they know, the guys who vote on it, they know hockey so good, they're impartial. I'm like, have you met humans? Like, you know, people, right? Like, people are not perfect. Nobody's perfect unless you're Crosby. But like
there's a lot of higher ups that are voting, like the Elliot Friedmans, like the guys you see on TV, which is always what people assume. It's like, oh, it's all the big name guys. No, like there's a lot of just kind of no name beat writers that
Joe Schmo who has a blog.
Votes. Yeah, like about the Pittsburgh Penguins, a guy who solely covers the Penguins and follows them all year, gets to vote on all the major awards. Like,
yeah,
it's not just all the big names. Like, there's a lot of, I'm not going to call them nobodies, but people we don't hear about or ever see. Like, they just write stuff behind the scenes and put it out, type of thing. So, and like those people, they get a vote.
And those guys, you know, if you have been a reporter for the Boston Bruins for 15 years and you get to vote on this, why did you get into this profession? You like journalism and stuff. You're probably, very good chance, also a Bruins fan growing up, you know, or at the very least a fan of the sport, right?
Yeah.
So you grow up being a Bruins fan. Now you've worked for the team on their payroll, or at least with the team in a media sense, for several years. You've got some bias there. Like,
yeah, you 100% do.
Like, and we've seen it time and time again with guys who will, you know, the 1 year where McDavid had all but one unanimous first place vote and the other guy put him fifth. It's like that's not that guy's genuine opinion. We know it's not, because it's just wrong. It's as close to objectively wrong as you can get while still literally being subjective. But we know he was lying. Like, he doesn't actually believe that. And we've seen it with quite a few guys. So I think between it, Calgary's just not a sexy team for a lot of people. You know, people have a soft spot for guys like Iginla. They remember him, but you know, it's one of those teams that people aren't like, no, yeah, that's a sick team. It just doesn't have that reverence around the league. And I think, you know, San Jose has had a great history, and Celebrini's got a lot of hype around him. I think Lane Hudson, I mean, nobody has more history than the Canadians. Hudson is breaking defensive records, offensive production records for a defenseman mostly, as well as just being, you know, they haven't had a defensive prospect like this in decades. So I think there's going to be a lot of hype around the other guys. If they can find any reasoning to not vote for him, I think they're more than likely to. Mm-hmm. Unless we see goalies win both. You know what? I wouldn't be against it, man.
I would love to see it. I'd love to be in a day and age where we see a goalie win the Calder and the Hart.
It would be really cool to see.
Moving forward with the Calder talk, though, what do you want to move on to next? Do you want to move on to Celebrini or Hudson?
Let's talk about Lane Hudson next.
Lane Hudson, currently second in odds to win the Calder. First rookie this season to hit 50 points. He's at 51 points in 65 games.
Very impressive as a defenseman, I will say.
Very impressive. Very impressive.
Yeah, he is playing a lot of minutes as well for the Canadians, which I think a lot of people are pointing to as like that's a big thing. I don't have his average time on ice here. I'm just seeing his
22 minutes, 21 seconds.
Yeah, like that's not Cale Makar numbers, but like it's top D-man numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he is he's second on the team in minutes played, he is just a bit below Mike Matheson. But
yeah, and that's not like Mike Matheson is kind of their all around do everything type of guy, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised by that. But yeah, 4 goals, 47 points, or 47 assists. Sorry, 51 points. He is the leader among rookies, like we've mentioned. He's a damn good player. He's a damn good player on the blue line.
He's really good. Like he's one of those guys. Like there's some of those records that he's passing where he's getting to that point where it's like this has been done 3 times in history in this many games, and the last guy to do it was Nick Lidstrom, and it's like oh fuck, we're at that point now. Like and we can kind of talk about him and Celebrini a bit together in this, but like it's so interesting to hear people's arguments if they're not talking about Wolf, if they're just talking about these two. The conversations are so weird because everyone talks about Layton Hudson at like, look at his offensive production. He's doing that as a defenseman. He's crazy. And people who want Celebrini to win it are saying he's a forward. Look how good his defensive metrics is.
Yeah.
Like it's so weird and backwards. And I think Celebrini would have the edge if he had the benefit of being healthy and playing the entire season. Unfortunately, he did miss, what was it? Probably like 9 games.
11 games, I believe.
Missed 11 games. He's just under.
I don't think that matters though. Like if he was down at that 55, 60, sure. But if you play, like if he finishes the season, he's going to play 71 games. Well, that's his number. So that's very fitting. To me, that doesn't matter. Again, like I love people online being like, oh, you know, because I'm obviously a Sharks fan, being like, oh, your buys, you want Celebrini. I'm like, yeah, sure. If he wins it, I think that's awesome. Good on him. But my pick, like I've mentioned, is still Dustin Wolf. Like that's perfect to put out there. The one argument I dislike, and it's not even the one you mentioned, the you know what Hudson is doing as a defenseman, and then the offensively, and then what Celebrini is doing defensively as a forward, is the overall point totals. Again, if you want to take that into account, sure, whatever.
And but we know they do. We know the voters do. You know, they take other things into account. But do you take the counting stats? Absolutely.
Or do you take points per game? Again, with that, it's got to be like a player's got to play like at least a certain amount of games. Like if a guy plays 30 games and puts up 40 points, you're not giving him the Calder.
They're not pretending he's a 95-point guy.
Yeah. But like, you know, a big thing is like Lane Hudson does have more points, 51 and 65. Celebrini's got 48 and 54. So it's a higher, it's not as many points as Lane Hudson, but it's a higher points per game. So, and again, that's always the way I view it, is more of a points per game level. But again, you do still have to play X amount of games for that to be relevant. Again, you can't just play the 30 games and go off for those 30 games and expect to get it. You got to play like what's up fair? Like at least 65.
I think that's fair.
65 to 70. Like you got to play at minimum that amount of games to for an out player. For goalie, obviously very different though. Goalie very different.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm not saying that people will look at 71 games played and be like, oh, I can't vote for him. It's more if he had played those games, I think he'd already be, if he played those 11 extra games, I think he'd be at, 58.
He would at least be tied. He would at least have 51.
Oh yeah, no, he clears 51. No, he'd at least have 55. I would guess around 56, 7, 8. And it doesn't detract from him that he missed those games, but like it's not hurting him, but he could have had more. And he would have, I think he would be the clear favorite at that point. He might be standing out. Like he's already, like you said, the betting favorite to win it. But I think they would have more ground to try and catch up on him if he did get to play those.
I completely agree.
But yeah, it's real hard to make too much of a difference of these guys. Like some of the most you can do is honestly, like, it sounds goofy, but like a little bit of eye test. like watching him play, and even then, there's not an insane difference in it.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know.
It's
Do you
tough.
have it pulled up here on their power play numbers?
Yeah, what do you want to know? Goals, points, or both?
Just both of their numbers for 5-on-5 points versus power play. I would love to know, like, because I know Lane Hutson, he's been on that top power play. Like, out of his 51 points, how many of those are on that power play?
So for Lane Hutson, he has 4 goals on the year, 1 power play goal. So he's got 3 5-on-5 goals. 51 points on the season for Lane Hutson. 22 are on the power play. So 29 even strength points on the year for Lane Hutson.
Okay, so he's got maybe 40% of his points on the power play, so he's still putting up 60% of those 5-on-5 ish.
I can get you an exact number.
Oh, hell yeah.
51 minus 22. Trying to do quick math here. Not the greatest at doing quick math, but we're getting there.
You got it.
56% of his points are 5-on-5.
56%. Okay.
Well, I guess 57. Rounding up, 56.8. So we'll say 57.
Okay. And what about Celebrini?
Celebrini, 7 of his 20 goals. Celebrini, Michkov, only 2 rookies this year to reach the 20-goal mark. 7 of his goals are on the power play. So 13, he's got 5-on-5. And out of his 48 points, 19 have been on the power play. So 29 even strength points. So Celebrini, 60% of his points. So relatively similar.
Okay.
So you can't use the power play logic to benefit either one because they're very similar.
Yeah, and I didn't even know if you could or not. Like, I just know
people love to use that argument.
Every single time I open up Reddit, I'm seeing another post of Lane Hutson passes it to line 8, absolute bomb on the power play, it's in the net. So I wasn't sure if he was merchanting it up over there or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to kind of draw a line between these two, even with the different positions. Lane Hutson, of his points, obviously a lot more are assists. 19 primary assists, 28 secondary assists. For Celebrini, he's got 28 assists, 15 of them primary, and only 13 are secondary. So he's a bit more of a primary. It's
kind of surprising, actually.
Playmaker.
I did not expect that.
Yeah, like he's, that's pretty in-depth stuff. So I'm not sure if that's stuff that they even look at with the voters or if they take that into a lot of consideration. I know it was
it's tough.
It was one of those things that was brought up a lot online last year in the Hart debate between Kucherov and McKinnon. Obviously, that's people online. There's a good chance maybe some of the voters do, maybe none of them even think about that. But
I'm not. I can't say for sure they don't because I'm sure that like there are some who do. So it's tough to say how much they take that into account.
Do you have anything between these two guys, any other stats or anything that really sticks out to you that could put either of them above each other that we haven't talked about yet? Like I guess you could point to goals, 20 compared to 4, but one's playing top line center minutes, the other one's a defenseman. So like,
I mean, if there was something that like they were like the exact same, it's like, what would be a tiebreaker in your opinion? What would be something that you would give the one guy the edge over the other? Some people may disagree with this, and that's fine. Celebrini's 18. Lane Hudson's 21. To me, I think if you had to pick something of like what would be a difference maker, it'd be that Celebrini's doing all this as an 18-year-old from his first NHL game to by the time the regular season's done, he's still an 18-year-old and doing what he's doing.
Yeah, that's fair. I definitely wouldn't look at it like that, just because it's so laid out at this point, that the voters don't look at that. Stuff like when Panarin beat McDavid for the Calder, and Panarin was like 5 years older than him or something, at least. Actually, I think it's probably closer to 6 or 7. But the way they view it, it's both guys are in their first year in the league. I will say, from a personal standpoint, it's blatantly more impressive to do it as an 18-year-old. Just flat out, it is. He's 3 years younger. But as far as the voting criteria, I don't know about that.
There's gonna, again, with these voters, there's probably gonna be at least one guy that's dead split, and they're just gonna be one guy's 3 years younger and doing it. One thing I would expect crazy,
that, honestly,
that not a lot of people are talking about enough, which I think is wild, is last year on Boston University, their top center was Celebrini and their top defenseman was Lane Hudson. So Boston University last year had the privilege of having both of these guys on their team.
I cannot believe, with how much Calder talk I've heard, that I've never heard that mentioned.
These guys, I didn't know this as well.
Because they probably played on a power play together last year.
I didn't even know this either. Lane Hudson's older brother Quinn was on that Boston University team, and Celebrini's older brother Aiden, who is a defenseman, was also on that team. So,
holy vibes, man!
Vibes are just immaculate in that room.
Dude, that's fuck, man. That sounds sick. You got two different sets of brothers.
They had 3 goalies last year. Boston University. One goalie played 2, one played 1, the other played 40. So they had their clear.
See, that's how you win the
clear
Calder.
Number 1. That's how you win the Calder right there. That's how you win the Hart right there.
Yeah, that's a future Hart winner. Who's that?
Just
Who
playing
played
every
40?
game. Matthew Caron.
Matthew Caron. I'm picking him for the Hart vote in 2032.
24 years old, undrafted. But looks like it's his potentially maybe his last year at Boston University. He does not look to be the starter anymore. No, he's still the starter. He's just not getting all the games.
He's more in Dustin Wolf territory, where you don't win awards.
Jack Hughes also on that Boston University team last year. Not the Jack Hughes, the other Jack Hughes.
I was going to say, I think he was busy.
But I mean, yeah, between this, it's a 3-horse race, but I guess we did it with Wolf. So, take your pick whether you want to be speaking for Celebrini or Hudson. What's your what we do? Our pick and then prediction.
Yeah, and
so you can pick whichever one you want to do, and then we'll know the numbers for the other guy.
I think that. So I had Wolf number 1 deserving, number 3 in prediction vote. I have Celebrini at 2nd deserving. I think it looks really, really close with those missed games. I think without those, he'd be a bit ahead. I think with the remaining games, he's going to push back to being ahead. And I think he deserves 2nd, and he's probably going to get. I'm going to say he's going to get 2nd as well.
Oh, you think he's going to get 2nd? So I think he's 2nd right now. In my pick. But I predict he's going to win, and I think the biggest thing it'll come down to is just the defensive metrics of his game. The point totals, I think, at the end, whether you want to do overall point totals of points per game, relatively similar numbers, nothing that's astronomically a big gap between him and Lane Hudson. And I think Celebrini will get it, being an 18-year-old and doing the what he's already doing for a 200-foot game.
Yeah.
But again, sure. I think between these 3, you can't go wrong with any one of them winning.
Yeah.
It could be one of those things where whoever wins second, third, and the votes could all be within 100 of each other. Like it could be that close of a race.
I would be shocked if they weren't all three within 300 voting points.
Like it's not going to be one of those ones where there's like a clear 1-2 and then the third is just there because they got the third most. Like I think it's going to be a top three where they're all like, the votes are pretty evenly spread out. Like one guy's not getting the majority, or two guys, like they're all going to be getting first, second, and thirds.
Yeah, like votes. With the Hart last year, Kucherov and McKinnon were within, I think, 200, 300. And then I think it was McDavid who was in third. Yeah, it was McDavid who was in third. He was like 600-700 back. Like it was a 2-horse race. And obviously through process of elimination, if you've been following along, that means I think Lane Hutson is probably the third most deserving by just a hair, but I do think he is going to win it.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see how these votes shake out. Not only for the Calder, but I think a lot of the awards, like specifically I mean, we know who's going to win the Jack Adams. I'm assuming after the trade deadline, we probably know who is going to win the Jim Gregory Gem of the Year. Most likely, I assume Jim Nill and Dallas will end up with that. But like the Hart, the Norris, and the Calder are all up for grabs right now.
Yeah,
Vezina maybe, but I think Hellebuck's still most likely going to get it.
Yeah,
but that gap isn't as big as it was earlier on.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I was beating that drum about a week and a half ago, but pretty much everyone who's 2, 3, 4, 5 in that race dropped off. Hellebuck had a good week. He's widened that gap a little bit again. So it's not a sure thing, because on any given night anybody can get shelled and another guy can put up a shutout. But like it's a pretty solid vote to have him
right now. It's definitely still, and with more than anything, it's not one of those ones where, you know, if another goalie goes on an insane run, it's Hellebuck has to fall off basically. Like he needs to have a bad stretch.
Unless that insane run is like 2 goals against in 6 games, like 4 shutouts and then 2 1-goal games. Like unless it's like literally that level, like the most insane stretch we've seen, then
like it has to, numbers.
Yeah, then it would have to be included with a fall off from Hellebuck a little bit.
Mm-hmm. But that'll wrap up our Calder talk. I'm sure we'll be coming back to discuss this as the season gets closer to an end. We'll probably do some hard talks and Norris talk here and there. We're at the tail end of the episode here, so Braden, it is that time where you're going up against yourself again. We are doing another edition of Guess the Player. For those who are new here, unfamiliar with the game, it's pretty simple. I have one current player in the NHL written down here, and Braden's job here, the birthday boy, is to guess this player in as few questions as possible, and he can only ask yes or no questions. And it's basically how many can he ask before he narrows it down to guess the player, and as always, you only get one guess on the player. So if you think you know and you hit it, boom, you did it. And if you get it wrong, you get a big X for this one. You've gone 3 for 3 before, and the lowest is 9 when you got Jacob Chikrin almost a month ago. It's been almost a month since we've done this.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm ready to try and beat 9, so I have to narrow it down in 7 guesses and then get it with my 8th.
It's tough.
That's tough. That's really tough.
You can pick wherever you want to start here and trying to start getting to narrowing it down.
All right. So as we keep doing these and I keep trying to beat my old records, I need to get more and more bold with my hints, because if I just go, you know, is he a forward, defenseman, if the conference and then the division and then the team, like it really makes it harder. So I'm going to have to take some swings, and it might end up in some really brutal scores, but you know what? We gotta go for it. So to start it off, I am going to try and narrow down the team a little bit that he plays for. And I am going to start with division, and I am going to ask, do they play in the Pacific Division?
They do not play in the Pacific Division, no.
Brutal. Fold the franchise.
Tough start here. Tough start.
Do they play in the Atlantic Division?
They do play in the Atlantic, so you're still even money here.
All right. We gotta get the team pretty soon. Should I narrow it down?
Any Atlantic team.
I'm thinking, yeah, I was thinking of maybe narrowing it down with like a question about how the team's doing, but I can't. I still don't know anything about the player other than the Atlantic, and this will be question 3. So I think I just gotta put my nuts on the table. And do they play for the Detroit Red Wings?
They do. They do play for the Detroit Red Wings. You are correct.
Yes. That's huge.
Very well done.
This is huge.
32 teams, and you narrowed it down in only 3 questions. That's impressive. It's a ballsy approach.
Trying to get it in that few, like, you got to go for it.
Yeah. It's got to let all hang out here now.
All right. Is this player... They got a wide range of ages on this team. Is this player 29 years old or older?
29 or older. They are not.
Okay.
No.
So they are 28 or younger. 28 or younger. I'll just write that down for my sake.
Detroit player, 28 or younger.
So they've got only 3 defensemen who fit that bill. No goaltenders. They got Edvinsson, they got Mo Seider, and they got Albert Johansson, who I have never heard of, but is 24 years old.
Yeah, man, they got an old blue line.
Yeah. They got an old, expensive blue line. Honestly, it's weird back there. For forwards, there's quite a few options still. You know, Dylan Larkin, Lucas Raymond, DeBrincat, Michael Rasmussen, Carter Mazur. Don't know much about him. Marco Kasper, Elmer Soderblom. Something about him sticking out. Maybe he'll be a wild guess if I mess up on these. And Jonathan Berggren. So, oh man, which way should I go about this? Should I go money? Some of these guys are pretty cheap.
Could go any way with it.
Is this player making $1.5 million or more?
1.5 or more? Yeah.
They're less than 28 or younger, and they're making more than 1.5. So that eliminates all the guys on their ELC. That eliminates every single defenseman except for Mo Seider. There's
yeah, you would be correct.
How many guesses am I at? Is that 5?
That is 5, yeah.
Okay. And I have to guess on when I'm at 7 to get 8, right?
Yeah. So basically, if you want to beat your record, it's maximum 2 questions and then a guess.
Right.
I think very doable.
Yeah.
I think very doable.
Oh, man. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's only 4 forwards left. It could be. And then Seider. So we've got it down to 5 players.
I believe you are correct, yeah. Yeah, it's four forwards based on your questions, and then
yeah.
Okay. Cider on the blue line. So 5 players you're going through now.
Yeah. So it's Raymond, Larkin, DeBrincat, Rasmussen, and Cider.
How do you narrow it down from here?
They're making 8. Does this player make more than $8 million per season?
They do not.
They don't. That's the good answer. So it's either Alex DeBrincat or Michael Rasmussen.
So this is the tough one here. Do you take a swing and try and set a impressive record with 7, or do you ask one more question to narrow it down and then still set a new record?
I think I want to improve every time, and just to lock it in, I want to improve by 1 and go for 7 next time. So right. I will simply go with, does this player have a modified no trade clause?
Modified no trade clause.
Which is what Alex DeBrincat has and Rasmussen does not have.
Who would you have guessed if you had to guess between the two?
I definitely would have guessed Rasmussen because it feels a little more off the board. DeBrincat feels like not an obvious answer. Like, I'm not going to guess one, but like,
yeah,
it feels easier.
You would have went with Rasmussen. Well, this player does have a modified no trade clause. Yes.
Oh, okay. So it is Alex DeBrincat then.
You are correct. It is Alex DeBrincat. Okay, so that's good. That's good. You went with your gut there and just went with the extra question there.
Yeah, I 100%, if I was going for it, would have said Rasmussen too. So it
was a little more outside their pick potentially. Boom. Yeah,
new record yet again.
New record with 8 there. You've improved every time.
Eventually, I won't be able to, man. Like, you can't just keep going until you're guessing the player on guess 1.
Yeah,
but we'll see how low we can get it. I'm a lot of that hinged on me just guessing the Red Wings.
Yeah, that was a very, again, like, that's impressive. Out of 32 teams and you narrow it down to the single team and only 3 questions, that's not going to be easy to replicate next time.
No. Eventually, like, if I get 7 and I have to get 6 in the future, like, I'm going to have to start, like, guessing teams at the start.
Yeah,
like, we're going to start and it's just
rip. Yeah,
every single time I'll just St. Louis Blues.
And maybe one day you'll be right. Maybe you'll get lucky and it'll be Binny Boy there, our beloved Canadian goaltender.
Played for Team Canada.
But I do believe that is everything we have here, wrapping this episode up. Once again, do want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Stick 'em Up podcast. If you want to join in on the conversations, the hockey talk, you can do so through any of the links down in the description across all platforms. Click them, come over, say hi, come talk.
Come hang out.
Just come hang out, all that fun stuff. But Braden, birthday boy, your big day, it is that time. Final thoughts.
I hope that the Flames go on a run. I hope Dustin Wolf is
without Connor Zary.
Without Connor Zary for a couple games. I hope that Wolf puts up back-to-back shutouts at least one time for the rest of the year. I would love to see it. Just solidify that he is at least right there in that hunt for people who don't believe in goalies. That he is him, because we know it. If anybody's watched him in the AHL the last several seasons, they know it. And teams are starting to find out. He's a really fun goalie to watch.
Well, the Flames' next 2 games are up against the Colorado Avalanche and the Toronto Maple Leafs. So if Dustin Wolf does get back-to-back shutouts, he 100% should jump up to the clear Calder favorite.
Yeah, I meant, like, at some point through the rest of the season, but, like, yeah, that's a pretty tall order.
That's going to be tough next 2 games.
That's too rough. Where do those 2 teams rank in goals for?
Like, who are you looking up? I hope you're looking at Colorado. Toronto's 10th in the league in goals for per game.
Avalanche goals for. Oh my God, this
7
sucks. 10th and 7th. Honestly, I thought they'd both be higher, but like
I kind of did too. But yeah, teams they're getting a little bit better playing defense. It looks like. But
McKinnon 0 shorthanded goals this year, by the way.
Bust.
But
that will wrap up everything once again. Thank you all for tuning in. And as always, we will see all of you out on the ice on Tuesday next week.